Hey, what is up guys, Rob the Undead Gamer here, and it's time for that video that I kinda promised last week. Not really sure what to entitle it, except for I suppose shady business practices within gaming, or this sort of new culture that has erupted from releasing unfinished games by sort of big studios and big developers, and this sort of trend that's sort of sprung almost from this type of practice. Now obviously all of this was kind of brought on by my experience with the Rainbow Six Siege beta, which if you want to listen to my impressions or hear my impressions, then click the link and watch the video and then maybe come back to this one. And you can also see my beta footage as well, which is coming up in the week, sort of coming, and you've already probably seen some of it, so you can see what I'm, the sort of things I'm talking about. But it's all there in my impressions, and really I was a little bit annoyed. I kind of had a little bit of a rant, and I have spoken about this sort of subject on our monthly podcast, the Undead Gaming Cast, and it's mainly, and Ubisoft is probably the best example of this, and they're probably the people that I probably aim this at the most. Obviously last year there was a massive debacle with Assassin's Creed Unity. Assassin's Creed as a series has become almost a joke, with Ubisoft almost rehashing and reskinning the same damn game that they've been producing for the last 5 years, just on different consoles, with a different number next to it, and with a different style. Suffice to say, the Assassin's Creed series hasn't changed much, and this yearly cycle that they decide to do with the franchise isn't doing it any favours. And we especially saw that last year with Assassin's Creed Unity, which was a game that pretty much was broken on release, especially on PC. The game was barely playable. The game had glitches coming out of its arsehole. That is not acceptable. And for the first sort of iteration of a next-gen version of an Assassin's Creed game, and probably one of the biggest, I suppose, titles for next-gen consoles at the time for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it was just absolutely appalling. And the shady business practice that went alongside it as well, with reviewers not being able to release full reviews of the game until 24 hours after the game's general release. If that doesn't set alarm bells ringing, I don't know what does. But that sort of shit is just not on. And to expect people to just buy a game at full price, £40 or $60, a game that's not finished, that's just shady as fuck. Seriously shady as fuck. And the expectation that these developers have is, be fine, we'll just fix it with patches, because we're in the age of such connectivity, with our consoles being connected to the internet and being able to connect to multiplayer and downloadable content in an instant. It doesn't mean that we should, or they should, expect us to be okay with just sending out patch after patch after patch after patch to fix games that they know are fucking broken. And this isn't just last year's Assassin's Creed Unity that Ubisoft have done this with. This has been games throughout this year that they've done this with. This has been Drive Club, which on its release, the whole point of Drive Club was getting together with your friends in multiplayer and being part of a driving club and play the game like that. The driving club element of the game didn't fucking work. Didn't even work. The point of the game didn't even work on release. Why? Why not? And furthering that, Far Cry 4 had problems, and we're still getting issues now with Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And by problems, I mean, obviously, yes, you've got the usual glitches, but with regards to comparing it to previous iterations, Assassin's Creed Unity, which had this online multiplayer function, they've completely taken that away. So in essence, you're getting less of a game. And it's this expectation that developers and publishers have where they think, well, it's alright, isn't it? People are going to buy our games anyway, which sadly, yes, They do. You guys do. Everyone buys these games still on release, on day one, or not long after they're released. And it's partly, I suppose, due to reviewers not actually giving a shit or thinking, maybe I should tell people how broken this game is, how fucked this game is. Like Rainbow Six Siege, the servers were completely fucked, and as I said last week, I doubt in the 2 days between the beta being shut down and the actual game's release, because there was only about 2 days in it, they had the time to fix those servers. Those servers were constantly up and down. Constantly on, constantly off. I barely got a chance to play the fucking beta because of how many issues there were with the fucking servers. The fact that you'll pay full price for a game that's fucking broken or not working or not what it should be, and then, you know, it's alright, you'll be able to play it in a couple of months' time after we finish patching it. What's the point? What's the point? You're wasting your money, you're wasting your time, and you're just giving these developers something that really you're not even sure is going to be fixed in a couple of months' time. There's no reason why Ubisoft can't decide, oh fuck it, we'll just give up on it and we'll start developing the next game. Because let's be honest, especially with Assassin's Creed, they only do that every year. So once they've finished that, once they've released one, of course they're going to start working on the next one, because fuck the previous title, they've got only a year, a small amount of time before they've got to release the next fucking title. It's an appalling service which is almost becoming very reminiscent of early access. There are a lot of Steam games that are sort of part of this early access culture that has really sprung up the last couple of years, where you will pay full price, like £60, $60 for a game that's not even fucking finished and has got all problems under the sun, just so you can play it a year or two before it's being sort of finished being developed, before it's finished and sort of fixed and proper and how it should be. That's, of course, if the game ever gets finished or ever gets released properly or fully. Developers could have given up by then. They've got all their money. Why should they waste their time developing a game that's sort of half there, half not there? They've got your money now. And I can understand it, I suppose, from smaller developers. There are pros and cons to early access, and I suppose it's not really for this video, but early access can be a positive in that if you're really passionate about said game and you want to get on board said game, I suppose similar to Kickstarter or Patreon, you're paying this amount of money to help the development process go a lot further. Sometimes developers do rely on that money that they get from an early access to complete and finish the game, and I suppose to a degree have what is really an extended open beta or even alpha of a game. So as they're developing, they can take instant feedback from a community on how to really make the game what the fans want to play, if that makes any sense. And obviously you've got the obvious cons to early access in that, as I said, developers could just take the money and think, oh cheers, thanks, we won't bother now because you've already bought the game, on to the next project that we've got lined up for you guys. And it's almost something that now AAA developers are kind of doing, or you might as well compare it to early access practices. It's something that is absolutely appalling, and 10-20 years ago something like this would never have happened, and I think it's only a thing just simply because of the internet. Because, as I mentioned earlier, we've got so much connectivity, we can download something in an instant if we choose to. And it's that excuse that developers are sort of using to think, well, if we half develop the game and have it, you know, relatively ready for people to play, then it's okay if we release it. Whereas no, the attitude should be, no, this game's not ready for launch. We should take it down. We should extend our development period, which I find a lot of genuine developers are doing. Naughty Dog, for example, has extended the release of Uncharted 4. I think it was meant to come out this year, but now they've extended it to come out next year, which as soon as I heard, I was like, no, good, I'm glad. You take as much time as you want to make the game you want to make and make the game that we all expect. The more time you take, the better the game will be. I'd rather them do that than release the game and think, there's a few glitches and a few issues with it, but people are still going to buy it because it's Uncharted and we'll just patch it. It'll be fine. It's a disservice to yourselves as publishers and developers, and it's also a disservice to us as fans and gamers. And I'll be honest, it really, really meddles with trust. we're consumers. We're the people that buy these games, and in essence, give you guys the support, give the developers and publishers the support and the money to continue. And if you piss us off enough, and if you dwindle down our trust enough, who's to say that you'll, go out of business or something like that? Something to that effect. Now, I understand that's quite a large threat, but in essence, isn't that true? Developers shouldn't be so cocky and so arrogant to think that it'll be okay and that we will just accept these sorts of practices are now part of this sort of new modern age of gaming. I don't personally think it's acceptable, and I really don't think you guys should think it's acceptable either. If anything, you're being taken for a mug. Obviously, this year we had as well the release of Arkham Knight, and that had a massive controversy behind it with the whole release of the PC version, which was released and pretty much broken as fuck. But credit where credit's due, Warner Brothers did decide to take it down from Steam sales. And I think, part of that was partly due to Steam's returns policy and refund policy sort of being changed and adapted. And I suppose to a degree, Warner Brothers sort of felt like they didn't have a choice. But at the same time, it's that sort of practice that I think is welcomed. They acknowledge they made a mistake, they acknowledge that the game was fucked and people could not play it, so they took it down completely. Offered people, if they want to return it, go for it. If you don't, then that's fine. And they were like, well, we're going to fix it. We're going to work on it. We're going to work on it and release it once it's fixed, once it's playable, once it's good for PC and general release, then we will re-release it. Now, what came of that, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure if it's still fucked or if they did actually, fix it and it's any better now. But at the same time, as nice as that was, it was an apology. It was an acceptance of, hey, we've done wrong here, and we shouldn't do that. If more developers and more publishers took the time and had that mentality, that sort of mentality of doing right by the consumer and doing right by their fans and the people that buy and play their fucking games, we'd be in a much better place. We'd be in a much better industry. I don't mean to hate on Ubisoft at all and brag upon them like I kind of have done, but they are a main culprit at the moment for these sorts of shenanigans and these sorts of practices, which are just utterly disgusting and utterly wrong. And I'm aware you're probably watching my Destiny gameplay right now and thinking, oh, you're a bit of a hypocrite here playing Destiny, playing a game that sort of when it came out kind of fell flat on its arse a little bit in the end because it really kind of didn't deliver on what was sort of promised. And yes, you're right, but at the same time, since the take, I can't really comment on that first year of Destiny. I'm playing post Taken King, and for what I'm playing, I'm enjoying it. And from what I've heard of people that played pre Taken King and post, Taken King's changed a lot, and for the better. And it really runs down to what I said in my impressions video of Rainbow Six, when I basically said, don't get it now. Get it in a couple of months' time when the servers are actually fixed, the servers are actually running, and it's worth playing, because guess what? You will be able to play it then properly, as opposed to trying to connect to servers which don't fucking work, and just basically you'll be throwing down 40 quid, you'll be throwing away $60. That's essentially what you're doing when you buy into these games that are half developed, half finished. Especially by publishers which are prime culprits for doing the same shit and pulling the same shit again and again and again. It's not acceptable, Ubisoft. That's it. I've said my piece. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully you agree. I don't know. If you don't, let me know in the comments. If you do, again, let me know in the comments. What do you think? Have you been burnt by these sorts of practices before? Have you had any personal experience with shit like this? Is it acceptable? What do you think? Do you think it's okay and it's a decent enough excuse for developers to think, oh, fuck it, we'll just release it and then patch it? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously, it's quite a controversial topic. It's quite a deep topic within gaming, and I think it's something that's close to all of our hearts here. So let me know in the comments down below. I've been Rob the Undead Gamer. I've rambled on far too much, and I will catch you next time. Goodbye.